There. Oh, good. Can you Oh yeah, I got you. Oh, yay. We Where's the mic? Welcome, Senator Durazo. My name is Professor Viola. We met actually decades ago. I was working at the UCLA Labor Center, and I co-wrote a book with our mutual friend Kent Wong on Miguel Contreras. And I had the opportunity to meet you. And when I knew that your activism back in the 70s enabled me to be able to be a professor of ethnic studies at St. Mary's College, I knew that I wanted to just publicly thank you for creating a path for others to walk on. And then I also wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity to dialogue with you. So thank you for being here.
Thank you.
You can hear me okay?
Yeah, could you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, wonderful. Thank you. And thank you for the invitation. I'm glad we're able to set this up.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm going to read a short bio of you. And then my students have a couple of questions. There's like 8 questions. And I know that we have about 40 minutes or so of your time, 45 minutes.
45 minutes, yeah.
Yeah. So could you also just keep that in mind in the sense that maybe we can keep the remaining 15 minutes for a larger Q&A?
Okay.
So awesome.
Whatever you want to do with your time. It's really cool to be with you all.
Yes, we're at Hagerty Lounge right now. And so Senator Maria Elena Durazo is a farm worker organizer, a sweatshop organizer, and union reformer, merged the immigrant rights movement with the labor movement in California with the hotel workers, Democratic National Committee woman, a state senator. She was arrested over 13 times for leading nonviolent civil rights and worker rights protests. And she said, nonviolence is the only way to move us forward, unquote. Along with being a grandmother, a mother, a labor organizer, elected official. And so can we just welcome her to St. Mary's? And so we have a first question, and I think it's Alyssa. Go for it.
Hi. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, a little bit louder.
Okay. Wait, yeah, you can. Can you hear me better from here?
Yes, much better. Much better.
Okay. Okay, and my question to you is louder?
Yeah, you kind of froze in and out, but go ahead.
Okay. My question to you is, why did you decide to come to St. Mary's, and what was the decision process like to come here?
Okay, great question. Well, first of all, I just want to say hello to you all. It's really great to be talking with you. St. Mary's had such a big influence in my life. It's really great. Hopefully, you might share some really short words as to why you chose St. Mary's. But the truth is, I worked really hard in high school to try to, get scholarships. Studied really hard. We had all been. I was a migrant farm worker alongside my parents, and we picked crops from Calexico all the way to Oregon, and it was extremely hard work, really difficult, sometimes painful. It was extreme cold to extreme heat. And I, frankly, unlike my father, who had a lot of pride in his work, had not caught on to me. So I was just so determined to have different, choices in my life. I was like, this work is so extremely difficult. I want to be able to see I can go to college and pick a different career and a different road. And so, but I knew that in order to take advantage of whatever schools accepted me, I needed my dad's permission. So that was number one. It's not not a decision he would let me make alone. So my father's permission was important. Um, I felt most comfortable in going to a small college, and my parents, we were all very devout Catholics, and so it made sense that even though it wasn't the number one reason, it made sense that I would go to a Catholic college if I was accepted. And finally, but just sort of they're all on the same line here, is financial aid. There was no way that I was going to be able to go to college and contribute anything, financially. I just knew that if I were, what I did have control over was studying, getting my best grades, hopefully getting that financial aid. Um, and frankly, going to college by itself, first and foremost, was such a big deal in my family and my dad's and for our whole family. My next oldest brother, there were 11 of us in total. I'm number 7. My next oldest brother had just been accepted. He was in his second year, I think, at Fresno State. So he was extremely helpful. I don't know how I would have done it without him, where he showed me the ropes, he helped me apply, he helped me, there were some programs that had started at Fresno State, so he was familiar with, financial aid applications. So that was really helpful. In the end, it was an important part of my final decision, which is I could piece it all together. My financial aid included loans, but mostly I could fit a whole package all together. So finally, with my dad's permission, he blessed me and said, okay, you can go. I trust St. Mary's.
Okay.
Introduce yourself too.
Okay. Hi, I'm Senator Durazo. I'm Bella. I wanted to ask you about your first impressions as a student at St. Mary's. And do you remember what conditions led you and other students to mobilize for change?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that question. Well, just again, as a reminder, my entire life up until that age, until I was 18 years old, my entire life had been in a farm worker setting. Either, in the summers, I would work in the fields. Our community was the Mexican community, farm workers that were migrating to work in California from Texas, and so that was my whole life. My Mexican American culture, our Catholic, faith. I mean, that was it. I didn't know anything else. So when I got to St. Mary's, it was like completely whole different new world. Um, I remember when I met my roommate, she was from Sacramento, and I found out sooner than later that she was from a very wealthy family. You can see pictures of her home and, big mansion. Uh, Great person. We got along really well. But the bottom line is I found a world which was primarily white and more on the wealthy side, and on this campus, which was absolutely breathtaking, beautiful. So I couldn't believe that I was there on this campus, and that they would feed me. I would actually have my meals made for me. Um, and and yet, it was so different from what I had known of, being primarily white students. Now, remember, I think this was only the second, maybe the third year that we went co-ed. So there were very few women compared to the number of guys on the campus. So that was another big surprise for me on the campus. But then I met other Mexican students. And then gradually, because there are a few of us, we started, hanging out and getting to know each other. And then the Black students. So there was a camaraderie that we built up. And there was a place on campus, I don't know, I'm sure it was renamed, but this was the Third World Cultural Center. And it was a place where we could hang out. There was a pool table, so you could have fun, but you could also talk serious stuff. So that became the social place that we could all get together and have a good time and meet other people. It was our cultural center, and through that cultural center and getting to know each other, we of course started talking about. Uh, there were those who were older. I think maybe 3 or 4 years ahead of me was like the first Latino and the first Black. So it was those who were 3 or 4 years older than us started telling us a little bit about the history. So it was really um, um, a slow but very, sort of friendly, intimate, small number of Black and Latino students. What were the things that led us to mobilize for change? There were a lot of things going on, and there were a lot of things going on in the world at the time. From my part of the state, the farm workers movement had grown and had a big presence in the Central Valley. So there was a lot of talk in the community about Cesar Chavez, Dolores Huerta, the farm worker movement, the strikes, the conditions that they lived and worked in. It was really like sort of an explosion of activity within the Central Valley where I ended up being living in Fresno before I went away to college. So all this was going on there. So we were exposed to that. My brother had taken me to my first ever protest, and it was called the Chicano Moratorium. And the Chicano Moratorium basically was about the disproportionate number of Latinos who were drafted to the war in Vietnam. And it was to say, one, we are not supportive of this war. We protested not only the war, but in addition to that, why were there such a disproportionate number of Latinos getting drafted and as a result of that getting killed and getting injured? So that's what the Chicano Moratorium was. There was a very famous one because it was the biggest in the country here in Los Angeles. I mean, not here, but in Los Angeles, in East LA. So all that had spilled over. We knew from friends, we, had our connections, all that spilled over. And we started realizing that we needed ethnic studies as well. We needed things like retention, a retention program to help us stay in school. There were schools, high schools in certain parts of the state where St. Mary's specifically recruited from. It's because they started recruiting Black and Latino students. So in Fresno, it was San Joaquin Memorial, where I was at. From LA, it was Cathedral and Salesian. That's where they recruited from. And so, there was different parts of the state where St. Mary's recruited us from, so that, our representation on the campus would grow. But those were all that was going on. We're down the street from Berkeley. That's how we saw it. A lot of activity in Berkeley, a lot of anti-war activity in Berkeley. And we met people from Berkeley, and then they introduced us to some of the faculty. So that's how we met faculty that then we recruited to take classes or give classes at St. Mary's. So all that was going on at the time, and it was, you know, it was a pretty exciting time. But the changes we were talking about also had to do with our culture, understanding and exposing other people to our culture. So the part of the Rural Cultural Center really was about, you know, having our own people's theater called teatros, right? Like Teatro Campesino that the farm workers had. There was also folklorico. I danced in the ballet folklorico and the danza. Um, so we had to learn a lot of that from putting into it, not because it was given to us. So I hope that answers your question.
Hi, my name is Brooklyn. Thank you so much for being here. My question is, what role did you take in any of those campaigns for justice at the college? And if you were part of the chapel strike campaign, what did the coordination between students on campus look like?
Yes, I was part of the chapel strike campaign. I'm glad you know about it and asked me about it. Um, we had made you know, over that time since I got there, it started to meet with administration about things that I mentioned, you know, financial aid, retention classes, our ethnic studies classes, and also to have an administrator that would help us oversee that, because you can't be a student full time and then oversee all those things. So that was another issue. Um, so we weren't getting obviously the response that we wanted. It was going too slow, and so we decided to take over the chapel, and and you know, even the altar, which was kind of strange for me because it's like you don't go on the altar unless you're a priest, right? Especially back then. So, but it was all done with a great amount of respect. It wasn't like we trashed it or did anything. It really was to incorporate the teachings of, in our opinion, the teachings of the Catholic Church. And so that was really important. Um, oh, we had meetings about what kind of actions to take, and came up with this idea of taking over the chapel and actually staying there. So take it over, stay there day in and day out. Some people did a fast. Not everybody was required to fast to be there, but there were some people who did. I did partially. I didn't do it for the 7 days, but there were others. So different people did a fast as well as stay there overnight. And the clearest visual I have of during that week was on Sunday morning. I think it was going to be the last day or the next of the last day that we were there. And I'll never forget that the priest went ahead and we kind of moved to a little bit behind and went ahead and conducted mass. Well, you can imagine all the people from the surrounding towns were like, what the heck is going on here? But you know, it turned out to be part, you know, they understood it was part of our message. The people going to mass were not happy. They were not happy at all. But the priest, I can't remember the priest's name who did mass, um, you know,
Yeah.
was not was not you know, he wasn't uh disrespecting us or trying to turn people against us. He was very much like kind of like this is okay. So that was the best part, of that there was understanding on behalf of someone like this priest, working, uh, knowing what we were, understanding what we were fighting for.
Hello, my name is Kevin Chiarte. I just want to know more about the response that administration, family, friends, uh, maybe other teachers on campus responded to the protest.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. Well, I didn't tell my family what I was doing, so you can understand that. There probably was what are you're going to college to get an education and you're taking over a chapel? So I didn't tell my family, my parents what we were doing. And uh, the overall, I would say the campus was, especially from the administration, they didn't call the cops to arrest us. They didn't do anything that would have provoked, a reaction, a physical reaction. Um, you know, uh, they didn't like what we were doing, but they also didn't react in a way that was happening in other colleges and universities. So that was a good thing. I just want to quick fast forward. A few years ago, I was invited to speak at the commencement, and part of what I told was the story of having been at St. Mary's, the story of what it took to be there, and partially of the stories of what we were fighting for. And there was a family that was, you could tell, were really upset by it, and they stood up and they walked out. And afterwards, I told Brother Mel, I said, I don't know how this messed up your commencement. And he says, don't worry about it. That's what our values are. That's what we stand for. And if somebody doesn't believe in that, then, that's their kind of like that's their problem. So, really, overall, now we had to push hard, push back. We had to do actions. We had to do, our marches. There's a lot of things we had to do, a lot of meetings we had to do to win the things that we won. So I'm not saying that they just like folded their arms and gave us everything. Um, but it wasn't with the violence that you could see in other campuses. So there was a difference there. There were a lot of faculty that were supportive, and there were a lot of faculty that were very angry, very upset at us. Same thing with the students. You found both those that were critical, and then there were those that, were supportive. So I would say that in general, it was a mixed reaction. But in the end, we were, nobody could say that we were, trashing the campus or doing something to hurt the campus. We were fighting for the things that were important to all human beings.
Hello, my name
Hi.
is Jillian, and my question is, why do you think your stories of resistance at SMC are not known? And what do you think other generations of students can learn from your experience?
Well, thank you very much for that. I think I'm not exactly sure why the stories of resistance. Uh, I've been invited numerous times. There was once an organizing campaign there for the food service workers, and students were very proactive leaders in that campaign to help the workers win unionization. So um, the students who some of the students who led that campaign to help the food service workers, they they took this past history of the campus of the role of students very serious. You know, they helped the workers, they talked to the workers. There were workers who were scared, they didn't know what to expect from the management, from the administration of the university, of the college. They so the students played a really important role, and there were some faculty, but it was mostly student leaders who helped those workers feel the confidence that they had the right to be able to unionize. They had the right to be able to expect good wages. They had the right to be able to negotiate, working conditions. So it was a really important example of how it doesn't have to be just stories of the past, but actually connect the past with something real today. What's it like for people who work in the jobs that help run a college, right? There's maintenance workers, there's food service workers, there's the room cleaners, there's janitors, there's all kinds of workers, aides, teachers' aides, there's all kinds of people who make a college function and run smoothly as possible. So those people all need to be treated with the dignity of contributing to your and my education. So the things that you could learn, your generation and other generations from the past is how it helps people today. If you can't make that connection, then it's just history, and you want history to be more valuable than just something that happened a long time ago. That's not as valuable as something that happens today. So you put yourself in the shoes of people who want to do something about today's and what's going on today. That to me is the most important. So resistance is something that should be carried forward, not something that just lands up in your history books, something that happened a long time ago. And that's why, frankly, we contributed to a movement which eventually led to, people having their voting materials in their language. That didn't exist at that time. So it led to that. It led to having recognition of LGBTQ community and what are the particular needs and contributions of that community. It led to the importance of nonviolence in our movements. So nonviolence, it's not just something that Dr. King did back then. There have been many books about people, including myself, who've used nonviolence as a tool of making change. So there's a lot of the resistance. Again, the most important thing is that you take it forward and do something about it today. Today. Are there still needs for farm worker families? Yes. Yes. Farm worker families did not get anywhere near the kind of wages that they deserve. They live in so many of them live in so much poverty. Are we thinking about them? Who puts the food on the table? Who picks the food? We think about the ICE raids and the violence that used in our communities. And how do you stop that? How do you stand up for our communities? You don't even have to be an immigrant. The two people who were killed in Minnesota, they were not immigrants, but they were killed, because of ICE raids. So there's so much that we have to continue to defend over and over and over again. Women's rights. Who would think that a woman's right to choose would be taken away, right? So it's these things that are so important today that we had fought for over the years and that we, have to continue to defend. It's our, defend our democracy, defend our Constitution, defend our freedoms. These are all things, it's up to you all to make sure that you keep that going. Otherwise, we're going to end up in a nation where real basic human rights are neglected or ripped away from us.
Hi, my name's Hayden. My question for you is, how did your time at St. Mary's College shape your future trajectory in your professional and personal life?
Okay, thank you. Well, you heard a little bit about, what I did while I was there as a student. Um, it certainly, there was no doubt in my mind that my faith and my activism at St. Mary's, the joining of those two had everything to do with my decisions of what I did the rest of my life. No doubt. The combining of the two, the merging of the two. Um, and so I decided I wanted to go to law school. I thought that that was going to be the place where I could contribute the most to making, making sure that people are treated with dignity and respect. I got involved in the immigrants' rights movement. And at that time, there was there were some union organizers that I was introduced to, and then they, helped me connect with actual campaigns on the ground. So while I was a student there at St. Mary's, and I think it was through one of the faculty members, met these union organizers, and I remember going to, it was in Richmond. I think it was in Richmond. It was a tortilla factory, and they were primarily women, immigrant women, who went out on strike, and so we went out there as students to help support them and give them moral support, but also maybe whatever sorts of things we could do for them to help back them up. So that was a real life experience that came as a result of meeting people and doing the things we were doing at St. Mary's. So I decided to become a union organizer. And my first experience as a union organizer was in the garment industry. And Los Angeles was known, not just Los Angeles, but other small cities, but big, big, a big city like Los Angeles with tens of thousands of garment workers. Um, and I'll just tell you, they were paid by the piece of your garment, right? So you would get 20 cents for making a sleeve, or you'd get 10 cents, for a collar. So you get paid a certain amount per piece of the garment. Well, that was all. The reason it was done that way was to avoid paying the legal minimum wage. And that was like so shocking to me. Like people weren't even getting the minimum wage and they were told, you have to do this many make these many garments, and then you'll get paid. So I became a union organizer in the garment industry, and I sort of made a pledge to myself that I would never forget what their experiences were. I knew what it was like as a farm worker. I knew it was like as a garment worker. I wanted to do something that would help address that. What they all had in common was that they were immigrants who were threatened, with deportation, immigrants who were threatened in many ways from having, just the basic rights in their lives respected. And then I did go to law school. It was the People's College of Law. I didn't become a practicing attorney because I then met people in the hotel workers union, and I decided to become an organizer there. And it was both a battle with the companies as much as it was a battle within the union. The union did not have the experience of translating the meetings into Spanish, and they refused. The union leadership refused to do that. They thought, we'll maintain our power over this union. And so it might sound strange, but I had to then take on the union leadership. Even though I believed in the union, even if you believe in the organization, doesn't mean that all the individuals are doing the right thing. So we got into a struggle within the union, and I led that. We changed the leadership, and then I was elected leader of the union. And then we had to deal with the fact that their working conditions were not what they should have been. So, as president of the union, we changed it. We pushed back on the hotels. We had a lot of battles. Had a lot of battles to get raise the wages. We had to defend our health care because there was always the threat that they would try to take away our health care. Many years of all of that. I did not decide, and then I did work on the national level to try and change the immigration laws. We did do some immigration, change some laws in 1986 to give amnesty to several million people. But I would help on political campaigns, helping to elect who I thought were better, more progressive candidates. But anytime anybody ever suggested that I would run for office, I said, "You're crazy. Never in my life will I ever do that. That's just insane." So I didn't do it until 2018. And then I decided I've got to do something. So I ran, and here I am in my last year as a California State Senator, representing my district, the area where I've lived in for 35 years. So that's what got me through. That's what got me through all these years.
Hi, my name's Danilo, and we just want to know what
Move over,
suggestions
Danilo.
or advice.
Wait, I can't see you. Move over. This way. Oh, no, the other way. There you go. There you go. Now I can see it.
Hi, my name's Danilo, and we just want to know what suggestions or advice you have for St. Mary's students of our generation.
Okay. Well, my recommendation to you is to be who you are today for the rest of your lives. If people try to tell you you should change, give up on things, grow up, don't act like a kid, things like that, don't listen to them. Be who you are today. Be that dreamer. Be the one that causes good trouble, Be the one that stands up, no matter how old you are. Be the one that stands up with other people, Be the one that takes to the streets. Whatever you're doing today, don't stop doing it. Make sure that's the person that you continue to be. Simple as that.
Senator Durazo, thank you so much. I wanted to open this for a space for our community members to ask you questions, but also for you to ask them questions about what St. Mary's is like today, what their experiences are like. And before I open it up for that dialogue, I do want to know, I'm teaching an oral history class, and some of the engaged learning participants and alumni want to say hi to you, and that's Teresa Ibarra, Carlos Reyes, Liz Sandoval, and Miguel Gonzalez. Some of my students here are doing oral histories throughout the semester, and they knew that you were coming, and they say hello.
Oh, that's great.
And so,
yeah, we had a little group that met a few months ago, so we're gonna try and pull some more alumni together and sort of talking about this, exchanging pictures. I don't think that it's being done by other Black and Latino alumni.
We were honored to have the SMC library hold a space for us last year. We did an oral history project with Herman Brown and
Yes.
Mushir Abdul-Jabbar. Yeah,
Oh
the
my
former
God.
basketball player.
Yeah,
Who walked off campus. They never had the opportunity to share their story as a Black student activist until that moment or that experience sharing it with the students. They recommended you highly, and so it's just really an honor to have this space for dialogue. And so I just want to make sure that if there's questions that folks have, you can ask. But also, Senator Durazo, if you have questions you want to ask the students, the space is really open for the next 12 minutes.
Well, I have a question for you all. After hearing me share with you my experiences, is there anything that you think today we had an impact on? Oh no, please tell me at least one thing.
Well, I believe this can help us really plan for the future. All of us are almost done with our year, whatever grade we're in at this point, and this will be a great thing to think about over the summer. It's not just school, we can carry this into our summer lives and think about ways to help everybody. This will be a great way to plan for the future in numerous ways, not just on campus.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. Thank you. That's really great. Really great to hear that. Anybody else? Go ahead. Go ahead, jump up.
Hi, I'm Sam. My question for you kind of was like because I work with Carlos as well. He said that during the chapel protest, he felt very fearful as well of like his safety. How did you feel of like your safety during these events with other students on campus kind of being against what you guys were working towards?
Well, I guess what you know, I guess my fears were not as great. I mean, there might have been specific things that happened to Carlos, but we were all there in watching out for each other, taking care of each other, and hanging out with each other. And I think that really made a big difference. Uh, uh, when you're together, when you do things together, you really have a greater sense of security, you know. And I think there were individual people who were taking more of a security role there. Um, I didn't feel the fear, and I guess probably because I was just more focused on, I'm surrounded by a bunch of great people who are doing good things and for all the right reasons. And I was in a chapel. I was in a chapel. What better place to be in and, do a sit in and take over than a chapel? So, so I think that's what gave me the comfort level that that I was most focused on. And I turned many times to prayer. I turned many times to thinking of my family. I mean, there are a lot of things that you could do, a lot of hours there that you could do reading or we did. Again, we did meetings, we planned all those sorts of things. That camaraderie brought us together. So I have I had that kind of experience. You might have you invited Tom Brown to be there as well? Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
he spoke to I think our ethnic studies students a few weeks back. Why do you ask, Senator Durazo?
Tom was a you know again he came in and helped administer and be the administrator, but he has a great sense of the history of the details. And whenever I try to remember, hey, I'm thinking of this guy or this person or that person, he really has a greater understanding and a really good memory of a lot of details and people's names and what they did and when they showed up. So he's the one I always turn to help me remember people and events and dates.
Senator Durazo, could I ask you, during my, I teach a special topics class on the decay of democracy. And one of the things that I included was based on the news in March around United Farm Workers Movement, and the violence that was endemic within that organization, but US society at large, and primarily in regards to the patriarchy and sexism. Knowing that you got your leadership and was involved in the United Farm Workers, could you reflect out a little bit in regards to your take on that and how you received that news?
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's a painful thing to confront, whether you were directly involved in with the farm workers or not, whether you were a farm worker or not. The movement extended way beyond the towns where the workers went on strike. It extended way beyond the campuses where they were doing, boycott work. It extended throughout the whole country and, in fact, throughout the world. My late husband, Miguel, was 18 years old when Dolores Huerta recruited him. He and his parents and 5 brothers worked in the fields. They went out on strike. Dolores Huerta, specifically recruited him to help with the great boycott and asked him to go to Canada, to Toronto. And there he met a bunch of nuns who were doing picketing outside one of the supermarkets in the produce area, I think, supermarket or produce area. And so he was assigned to work with them, to carry out the experience of what was going on with the farm workers. I mean, the number of people who were impacted by that movement is also generational. It's not only me and others. It's been passed on over the years, that experience. So this was a painful thing to come to grips with. But at the same time, we all know that movements are not of an individual. Movements are a lot of people. Movements are young people, older people. Movements are the ones that carry it forward. And so I'm grateful to the movement. I'm grateful to all the farm workers who gave up their lives. I'm grateful to all the farm workers who were beaten and arrested for their courage. So that's that. I don't forget that, while I feel like I said, I feel the pain of that this took place and the pain that it caused several women, and we don't know the extent of that. That something you don't want to happen, but it did. And I'm acknowledging not only the worst that happened, but also the best that happened. And it's a reminder to all of us that no one person should be held up on the pedestal and without the criticism, without the freedom to speak out, without the ability to stand up for a different opinion. That's really so. In our own organizations, you as students, with each other, you as students of the campus, to protect the democracy that we have won in this country is so important. It goes way above us, beyond us, and then to organizations, day-to-day organizations. So that's how I feel about it.
We have reached pretty close to time, and so if there's any last reflections or thoughts or gratitudes that folks want to share out with Senator Durazo, say it now or forever hold it.
Well,
Senator
I
Durazo,
just want one final thing. This is ongoing. Our struggles, our vision for the future is ongoing. and you know, you have your ups and downs, but you pick yourself up and keep moving forward. I am so grateful to my father. I'll never forget the day I went to St. Mary's. The day I went to my first day coming up here, I was at home and my dad, you know, has this little cardboard box and it was all wrapped up and with twine that you use out in the fields. And he says to me, and he was a very dignified, serious man. And he says to me, he says, "I'm really sorry. I want to apologize to you." And I said, "For what? What are you talking about?" And he goes, "I wished I had been able to do more for you." And I said, "You know, there's no reason to be ashamed because you're poor. There's no reason to be ashamed." I was so grateful to him, and yet he was feeling shame of not being able to provide more for us. He worked every day, day in and day out, sun up to sundown, took care of us, did second jobs, did whatever he could, and yet he was still made to feel that he was less than other people. So remember stories like that and keep fighting for our communities. Thank you all. Take care. God bless. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. That's going to conclude our spring intersession. We have two others, again, May 21st, and then May 21st is the luncheon, graduating. We're going to launch our oral history project on our website. And then there's also Dr. Nicole Brown's May 20th, the day before, in the morning, where she's going to give kind of a symposium on their work with thinking about